soy grande, quisiera tener una pelota.
Hola, yo soy Gala, me gustaría tener una muñeca.
Yo quiero una pelota nueva, viste que sea donde sea más nuevita.
Esperamos sacar muchas sonrisas y esperamos pasar un momento hermoso en este River Toys.
Argentina, 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 Argentina.
Faltan poquitos minutos para abrir las puertas y recibir a miles de niños que van a venir a divertirse, que van a venir a jugar, que van a venir a pasarla bien. Así que esperamos muchísimas sonrisas como regalo, como devolución. Gracias River por acompañarnos, gracias River por tu amor y llega como un río que no se detiene. Esto recién empieza, lo mejor está llegando. Dios te bendiga.
Gracias por Alberto.
Gracias por los juguetes.
Gracias por la muñeca.
Gracias River por los regalos.
Gracias por los regalos.
Gracias por la pelota. Gracias, River.
Thank you all. This is to the south of the hemisphere. After Argentina, we're going to show you 2 countries per Sunday. We also were in Uganda. This is River Toys, Uganda. Our school over there, our teachers, our kids. They're celebrating, really, they can really celebrate it in a very nice way.
River Church, we thank you and we are happy because we are going to have a Christmas party.
Today we have Christmas party.
River School, today we have Christmas party.
Here we are in the midst of Uganda for the first time. River School has Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yo, 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 yo.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, River Church.
Merry Christmas, River Church.
River Christmas.
Your children, River, they had the best Christmas, really the first Christmas of their life. River School is going to be #1 in Uganda because of you. God bless. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
I wish you a happy Christmas.
A Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, River! Thank you, River!
Hey, thank you for donating and making this possible. This is your seed. This is church. That's why we serve. So every time we see these videos, wow, that's why we serve the Lord. So we put a smile on those little kids' faces. We have to recognize. We have to celebrate Christmas that way. They're so happy. They dance in such a special way. This is beautiful. They never thought they were gonna get a gift in Christmas. So we are their parents, and we are helping them. Thank you for sitting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for donating. Thank you. And to the whole world, thank you, who's helped make this possible. Now, about 3 years ago, I preached a message titled Winter Virus, in which I told the following story. On December 26, 2004, the third largest earthquake ever recorded by the seismograph erupted beneath the Indian Ocean. It produced energy equivalent of 23,000 atomic bombs, recording a magnitude of 8.8 on the Richter scale. The shock waves produced tsunami waves measuring more than 100 feet in height, traveled 500 miles per hour, and reached a radius of 3,000 miles. It was the worst tsunami in history. There were almost 230,000 victims. Imagine how many football stadiums. But one group of people, by miracle, survived without a single victim, the Moken. The Moken are an ethnic group that maintains a nautical culture based on the ocean. They live their lives on the ocean from birth to death. They're known as the sea gypsies. Their handmade wooden boats function as floating homes from these sea gypsies. Moken children learn how to swim before learning how to walk. What saved their lives was their intimacy with the ocean. The Moken know the moods of the ocean and its messages better than any oceanographer. They read the waves the way we read street signs. On the day of the earthquake, a photographer was taking pictures. When the sea began to recede, the photos of it show many of the Moken crying. They knew what was about to happen. They recognized that the birds had stopped chirping and the cicadas being silent, that the elephants headed towards higher ground and the dolphins swam further out to sea. And what did the Moken do? Those near the coast of Thailand climbed to the highest elevation possible. Those who were at sea sailed out to sea. Burmese fishermen in the same vicinity as the Moken were devastated by the tsunami with no survivors. They don't know how to look, said a Moken. They didn't know how to see the waves. The elephants and dolphins spoke to those Burmese fishermen, but sadly, they did not know how to listen to them. The Moken saw a small wave that did not seem normal to them. That, and an ancient legend that had been passed down from generation to generation about a wave that comes to the people. Somehow, they perceived that this wave was that wave. Like the seafaring navigator, if you may, who understand the language of the sea, Christians should discern the language of the seasons throughout our lives. And today's message is for those of us who were once on the verge of giving up, of throwing in the towel, of abandoning everything, just for not being able to interpret the dialect of the seasons. There is no worse tragedy than when winter comes, we continue stubbornly wearing summer clothes. Or that, come summer, we resist taking off our jackets, coats, or snow boots. And by not discerning that we are entering a different season, we are sometimes tempted to abandon their faith and request an indefinite leave of absence from the army of God. We all long to have good seasons. But seasons of illness help us value seasons of good health. Seasons of failure help us value those of success. Seasons of death help us value seasons of abundance. And difficult times help us value the good times. And even if we don't like it, we all need a healthy dose of seasons of adversity. Of course, we want to have an eternal spring in our lives. But the reality of this world is that we don't. There are times when we realize that that wave is that type of wave. We have to make sure to discern the type of wave. A tsunami that is going to sweep us away. We have to discern that moment. Again, difficult times help us value the good times. And yes, we all need a healthy dose of seasons of adversity. But the great game of life is to know what kind of season we are going through. Yes, that's very important. And obviously, about health, finances, and relationships. If we can discern the seasons and we're immersed in these troubled waters, sometimes we ask and say, why? I don't know why. I am going through this. But the great game of life is to know again what kind of season we're going through. Okay, if we're in winter, okay, I'm going to take my clothes. Fall, well, I know it's going to rain. I'm going to enjoy my season of spring. And Solomon opens chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes saying, everything has its time, and everything desired under heaven has its time and its season. Everybody has a special time and opportunity. Everything has its time. Solomon makes a list of 28 seasons, snippets of the types of stages we are likely to experience in the course of our lives. It is important to identify the seasons so that when it comes to an end, we do not cling to it and go out with elegance. Yes. Sometimes have to say, my youthful season is over. I cannot be an old person thinking I'm an 18-year-old. I have to cover my matureness, if you may. You have to know how to go out with elegance. Sometimes there are couples who are sucked into the vortex of a dysfunctional relationship. They're not bad people. They're just not right for each other. And they're the worst versions of themselves when they are together. But neither has the courage to end that season, and they continue a toxic relationship. Others cannot understand that they must leave a ministry or a job. They tend to see seasons closures in a negative way, and this is not always the case. You have to realize that when a season is over, it's over. Yes, when a job is over, you have to know when certain season is over. Sometimes everything that starts has to come to an end. You cannot avoid it. And at some point, the little kid turns to a man and has to leave the home. If you treat him like a little kid, it's a man already. Let him grow. Let him fly. Let him make its own life. It's part of life to let go. We have to let go. So sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes giving up a season that has already ended is the most prudent option we can choose. So you have to say, oh, I enjoyed this. This is the end. I'll finish it. But most of the time, resignation is not the option that the heart wants to choose. It wants to move forward because we invested a lot. There are times when we feel that when a season ends, we are burying an investment and many years of effort or everything we gave and delivered. Sometimes people in a church don't leave because they say, I put that brick over there. Hey, take your brick and leave that church. Your season is over. But life consists of following that pillar of fire and not fleeing from the Egyptians who are chasing us. Again, in everything, any relationship, at a job. But life consists don't forget this, in following that pillar of fire and not fleeing from the Egyptians who are chasing us. Many times, instead of being the result of where we are going, we end up being what? Who are we fleeing from? Our life should not be defined by what we run away from, but attributed to what we run towards. We have to run so the new thing, something that God has for us. It's easy to flee away from bad seasons, but it has to finish. So we could value the cold. And the cold has to end so we could value the warmth. God divided the life in seasons. During the last 15 years of River, this congregation and those who watch us online have heard many of my messages. But I know that one day there will be a last service in which I'll have to express my last words as a pastor, as your pastor. It will be when I have to move onto a new assignment, or God will simply tell me, you have come this far. And although the messages are recorded in a time capsule and available to whoever wants to hear them, because we didn't have 50 years ago, you could listen to the preachers, I know there will be one last time when I will stand before you as your shepherd. But until God gives me a new assignment and a new season, each of us will have to ask ourselves, what was the last order I received from the Lord? The Lord asks us, what was the last thing I called you to do? What was the last order I assigned to you? God, sometimes give me a new season. I want something new. Okay, first listen. What was the last order from God? And you have to be faithful to the last order from God. There's a story that says that General St. Martin gave orders to his corporal not to allow anyone to enter the regiment's compound with shod boots and spurs, until one day St. Martin himself wanted to go into the regiment's compound with his boots on. And the corporal told him, I'm sorry, either you take off your boots or I can lay you in. These are your own orders, sir. And St. Martin said to him, Corporal, aren't you aware that it was I who gave you that order? Of course, sir. Change the last order I received and I will gladly let you pass. I like that philosophy in all of our seasons. I like that axiom. Remain where you are, obeying the last order, the last assignment, until they give you a new one. That's life. Power of focus. This is what God told me to do. Now I'm mother. I cannot worry about when I will be a grandmother. Now I have to be a father. Later on in life, I'll see when I retire what I'll be. Now I have to be a grandfather. It's your assignment that you have today. This is what I have to do today at my job. If I have to be first, second, third, fourth. Circumstances and geography may change, but we will continue doing what God called us to do. Is it making sense what I'm saying? And before I get into the rest of the message, there is something I would like to clarify. There's a strange idea that circulates through churches today. Some Christians have the strange impression that being Christians will exempt them from all problems. Somehow, they believe that by accepting Christ, they are given a fast pass with small letters on the back which say, the bearer of this car absolves him from any type of pain or problem which he lives on this planet. Oh, you cannot have problems with your kids. The kid will never throw a tantrum. You will have a perfect life. Your marriage will be perfect. Like if you marry Cinderella, or maybe you marry the beast, you will never have financial problems. You will never be sick, not even a cold. When you think that this is for you, but it's not like that. Christians do not have immunity from the different seasons. If there's a pandemic, it comes from everyone. If there's a recession, it's for everyone. Same thing if you're a new believer or an old believer. It doesn't matter. If you're a spiritual giant, we are imperfect creatures in a fallen world. We struggle with other burdens that come with being a member of the human race. When we become children of God, what distinguishes us is not that we do not have problems, but how we deal with those problems, how we face those seasons. This is what some of us stand out during pandemic. It's how we deal with the pandemic. You saw this mucus that came from China. Those who didn't believe in God and acted like an atheist. But for us, no. We say we're going to face this with faith. And we're not, prudently, with valor. I'm a Christian who believes in God, that I know about the problem, about the pandemic, and I'm going to face it the best way possible, trusting God. If your son is throwing tantrums every day, it's not that he has a demon inside. It's how are you going to deal with that? Maybe your son is a teenager and you're having problems. It's not that he is the devil himself. Remember how you were a teenager. You say, oh, my times. Nah, you were the same way also. But we forget. So the first tantrum, so you think God is not upon us, God has forgotten us, He has forsaken us. 1 Peter 4:12 says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial that has come upon you, as if some strange thing were happening to you. I mean, we don't have to look surprised. I think he was ironic about it. Oh, there's a trial. Of course it's a trial. And King David was not surprised when he sensed that he was going through one of his worst seasons. And he recorded in Psalm 71. That was David's tsunami. It was a time when one of his sons, a young man named Adonias, tried to usurp the throne of his father. David had promised the title to another of his sons, Solomon. So, political turmoil and a family war were mixed. And it's believed that David wrote this psalm during the heartbreaking moments of this family discord. And David was almost at the end of his legendary life. He had led the young nation of Israel to a pinnacle of power and stability. In the midst of building a dynasty, he had already survived a previous family insurrection. Absalom, his heir, had turned against him and had attempted to seize the throne with a coup. The cost of this son's insurrection was enormously heavy and included the life of Absalom and the loss of many men. Now, his son Adonias was trying to steal what David had promised to Solomon. It seemed like the nightmare was repeating itself again. When we see David's personal life, we realize that none of us have had real family problems. See, it was nice to compare other people's life because you think, oh, it's always us with the worst kids. No. But he had one kid worse than the other. David's heart was burdened with deep sadness. He has served God for so long and now have to experience this. Another son wants to usurp the throne. This is a real tragedy. David knew that he had made serious mistakes in his younger years. But even so, this was too high a price. Why do I have to live this? I don't understand it. He does not understand it. And Psalm 71 is an incredible gem of a scripture. It's not very long. He has only 24 verses. And yet, hidden within those 24 lines, there are at least 50 quotes or references to other psalms. The psalmist gathered all these references in his tormented mind, examined them in the light of a lifetime of divine wisdom, and assembled them into a mosaic of a masterpiece of heartfelt poetry. He knew something about the sudden change of seasons. He was, David, the first Moken to see that a destructive wave was coming. And he describes to us with passionate phraseology what he saw during that difficult season. And the first thing he expresses is, "My God, deliver me from the hand of the wicked and from the hand of the evil and violent." David had several dangerous enemies that caused him tremendous anxiety. We all have enemies to fight. Maybe no one persecutes us like David was persecuted. Maybe we didn't suffer like David suffered. But someone may be displeased with us or just plain likes us. Maybe they are dissatisfied with God, and since they see our blessing, they focus all the heat and hate of their frustration on us. And for certain people, we become everything that person envies, is jealous of, and makes them angry because they cannot have it. And it's like that. People will just plainly hate you, and they will just not like you. And maybe because you look really good and they don't. Maybe because you have money and they don't. Maybe because you are happy or you don't. Or maybe you're really ugly and you're not. Maybe because you live in this country and they don't. Who knows? Or just because God bless you. Yes, and it happens. And people will hate you. People will not like you. It's part of life. It's how it is. Then David seems to give more information about his bitter season. My enemies talk about me. And those who lie in wait for my soul consult together, saying, God has forsaken him. Pursue him and take him, because there is no one to rescue him. Oh God, do not go away from me. My God, come quickly to my aid. Let the adversaries of my soul be put to shame, and let them perish. Let those who wish me evil be covered with shame and confusion. Some evidence comes from people who are not even enemies in this etymological sense of the word. People closest to us can also hurt us. In this season, the coalition that caused David's problem was not made up of Philistines or another foreign tribe. David's enemies were people from his own inner circle, from his own family. Among them were his beloved sons, Absalom and Adonias. Both tried to usurp the throne. And there is another daughter who wouldn't talk to David. And sometimes the deepest wound is caused by whoever is closest. No wound is as painful as the one caused by someone we love and trust. A house divided against itself is a terrible trial. And then David speaks to God in a starkly sincere way. You have done great things, O God. Who is like you? But you have also made me see many anguish and evils. Difficult seasons can come from friends, from enemies, but they can also come from the power of God Himself. This is something that only parents can understand. There are times when parents have to allow things in our children that we could prevent them from going through. Although we will give anything to avoid any type of pain. But if we really love our kids, sometimes we have to allow them to deal with their own blows. There are blows and difficult seasons that teach things that the wisest words of parents cannot teach. Some things cannot be learned with sermons or advice, but at the cost of burnt fingers and scraped knees. And as I always say, God allows certain obstacles. We need a divine controlled environment. God knows there are seasons in which His children will emerge more mature and wiser. Kids have to break themselves sometimes. If happened to me, my parents had to let me go. Oh, I had bad experiences. And everything that I have is thanks to God. I know. Oh, not like parents nowadays that take kids as a fart and you take them to the ER. No. There are blows, difficult seasons that we have to let our kids go through. And so, always say, God allows certain obstacles within a divinely controlled environment. That is the truth. That is the truth. Oh, if we experience something that burnt you, if you got burnt, when you say it burns, oh, we'll get away. And when this happens, as adults, we learn. Imagine when the waiter comes and says, don't touch the plate, it's hot, and you go and touch it. Little kids, not until they experience the burnt, the heat. And God knows there are seasons in which His children will emerge more mature and wiser. Yes, God will allow that. He is looking, though. He is watching you. He's watching you. He knows what's happening to you. He has not forsaken you. Yeah, you'll be more wiser. Much, much wiser. Psalm 71:7 goes on to say, I have become as a wonder to many, but you are my strong refuge. What was talking David about? David was a public figure. He knew that everyone was watching what he did. Christian leaders, we know how true this is. Everyone knew the horrible details of David's family problems. I always say my private life is my private life. My personal life is my personal life. But if you want to put yourself as an example, something so sane, but then we fall, or if you fail, that's where fingers will be pointing at you. Private life is private. Authenticity is not lack of privacy. You don't have to use social media to see how you go to a bathroom. You don't need to do that. It's because I'm authentic. You open a door that is going to be so hard to close. When people are in your life, you want to take them out. Well, you open the doors. You're interested in how you live. You're showing how your private life is. You cannot discern what's good, what's bad, what opinion to give in good and bad in your personal life. It will happen. Don't open up. But David was a public figure. Everyone knew the horrible details of David's family. Not only was he the king, but also a man who always talked about God. And now he seemed to have feet of clay. And he says it, I have become as a wonder to many, but now you are my strong refuge, and that's where I want to go. He just wants to be hidden. I want to go fly somewhere else. People say, stop. I don't want people. I don't want to deal with people. David was wise enough to recognize the limits of his wisdom. He was painfully aware of his limitations and his weaknesses. Then he cried, deliver me in your justice till you hear and save me. It's an SOS. It's the most basic cry that can come from the soul. Lord, I want to get out from here. For the world, I want to get off. I can't no more. I can't. I'm crawling into the end of the year. I can't no more. This was the worst year. Oh, I would love to wake up and then the next morning, everything by miracle is perfect. There's no trouble. Look, I have $1 million in my account. You call the bank? Yeah, it was a mistake, but use it. Doesn't matter. We go to the kitchen. You tell, and your mom left. She's never coming back. Oh, thank God. What did your mom leave? I don't know. She felt not coming back ever again. Maybe she went to a monastery. She says she's not coming back until she dies. You want things, an eternal spring. Someone said that Psalm 71 is full of great praise and great complaints at the same time. David takes us on an excursion into the depths of the abyss. And then he shows us the high path we must take when we enter those low places. And as in many of the Psalms, David's pilgrimage encompasses both human defects and divine history. And this is not a minor issue, because it has been preached to us that we must have positive thinking. They assure us that if we practice positive confession, positive things will happen to us. There are entire books about positive thinking. Oh, yes, you will hear this. Absolutely. And that being positive, good things will happen all the time. Even atheists believe. Say, it's gonna be good, it will go good. Sometimes things go wrong. Very wrong. Very, very wrong. Nobody's saying amen. It doesn't matter. And if our mind is shaped to be always positive. The time will come when we are living in an imaginary world. Me, I like to be positive. I consider myself a positive person. But there's something I also believe in. If no one does have a realistic point of view of adversity, when the time comes to face that reality, the result is not going to be very positive. We cannot stop believing what we really believe because we're experiencing a season of debt. But it's really probably because we spend more than we were earning. Even great businessmen fail doing any business and didn't even have God. And they go and start over again and do it again. You cannot say, I'm not going to pay taxes and IRS will never find me. Sooner or later, IRS will find you. Welcome. Welcome to the IRS world. It's like you want to be a public figure and that no one's going to criticize you. If you are a public figure, people are going to criticize you. No, you're not Taylor Swift or you're not the Kardashians. If you have social media, you're telling people, I am open to your public scrutiny. If you take a picture and you put some filters, and someone's going to say, oh, you look so fat. Hey, don't ever post that picture. But when you post that pic, someone will comment. That is the truth. They criticize me all the time. There's always people that is there doing nothing, sitting on a chair and giving opinions about people. They do that. And not necessarily is good opinion. Yes, life isn't going to be a walk in the park. And David was not very given to fantasies. But when David saw that the worst that life had in store for him, he was able to remember God's faithfulness. In Psalm 71, he was saying, in you, O Jehovah, I have taken refuge. May I never be ashamed. Help me and deliver me in your justice. Tilt your ear and save me. Be for me a rock of refuge to which I continually turn. You have given me a promise to save me because you are my rock and you are my strength. Whenever we face trials, we have to remember who God is. David understood that he must remember the honor of God, even when his own children did not honor him. Things may be worse, but God never changes. Everything else changes except God. As a poet, he's the fixed point in a changed world, the poet said. David knew this. He knew that God will honor him. God was there. God is faithfulness. Seasons change. God does not change. God is a fixed point in a changing world. And David added, my God, deliver me from the hand of the wicked and from the hand of the wicked and violent. For you, O Lord Jehovah, are my hope, my security from my youth. In you I have been sustained from the womb. You are the one who took me out of my mother's womb. Look what he points. Since then, see my mother's womb. My praise will be always to you. He's thinking all his life. He's thinking he gave me the life. He gave me life. Impressive. What did David do in this moment of despair? He stepped back into his memories and reviewed the many pieces of wisdom about God, what he had learned over time. God has shown him fidelity throughout his entire life. David had faced a giant. He faced a jealous king with a murderous mind. He had faced the legions of challenging nations, dissatisfying nations, and somehow Israel had survived and prospered. In all these things, God had been faithful. The Lord had brought it forward. And what was true for David, it is true for us today. In my case, I can look back and say, Lord, you have blessed me every day of my life since I was a child, growing up in a small legalistic church. You have satisfied the deepest desires of my soul. You have kept me through every crisis I have experienced. You have blessed me with wonderful gifts and talents. Since I was 7 years old, you fed me with your word, and you allowed me to grow at the feet of your great men. And you freed me from the chaos, from my stormy adolescence. You watched me over through high school, and in many years of my clumsy rebellion and in seasons of weakness. You sustained me through my first days of ministry. Even when so many criticized me mercilessly, when I could have thrown in the towel and abandoned your work. Lord, when I remember the past years and how you transformed that shy boy into a man of faith, I can only say that your faithfulness is truly very great. What about you? You could write a psalm about your life, about you. What is your testimony regarding the grace and goodness of God? Think about that. Think about your life. Think about that. How God has been with you always. Always. How you let me live and watch Messi. I'm just giving you ideas. Yeah. What is your testimony regarding the grace and goodness of God? Even you have walked with the Lord for only a few weeks, God has been good and faithful to you. And God's faithfulness is a reminder of how much God loves you and that He has not lost His interest in you. He's not going to change in what He has been doing faithfully since eternity. But difficult seasons always extract from us our best version, and He prepares us for what is to come. 1 Peter 1:7 says that when your faith is tested, being much more precious than gold, which, although perishable, is tested by fire, may be found in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. He's saying this is something normal. Peter joins David in stating that fire tempers the steel of our character. Yes. The psalmist in 119:67, before I was humbled, I was astray. But now I keep your word. It is good for me to have been humiliated so that I may learn your statutes. Test me. Test makes us walk on the straight path, while those who are not tested end up going astray. Santiago, James also wants us to hear the same message. He says, my brothers, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, knowing that nobody's saying amen. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. James 1:2. God, give me patience with my kids. More trouble with your kids. Patience comes by giving you trials. Sometimes you don't know what you're asking. God, give me patience. So God's not gonna give you patience. He's gonna give you trials. God, I ask you for patience. That's why more trials, so you could really exercise the patience. And Peter tells us that the difficult seasons are not going to be eternal or forever. After you have suffered a little while, He Himself will restore you, establish you, strengthen you, and make you firm. Oh, this is beautiful. In 1 Peter 5:10. When I was younger, someone told me that God does not use anyone to a great extent until he crushes them. I never liked that. I never say amen. I don't like it, I used to say. And I said, God, I want to be an exception. Let me enter faithfully into a ministry without feeling pain. You know that I am sensitive. I already suffer. But God doesn't make exceptions. Or you need to go through the tsunamis of life, or you don't want to go. A few years ago, it did me very good by reading the biography of the great preacher Charles Spurgeon. When I thoroughly examined the details of his life, I noticed that Spurgeon accomplished more in the course of one life than most people could accomplish in 2 lives, even though he died at the age of 57. He was young when he died. Spurgeon suffered for prolonged bouts of depression and anxiety, and his psychological ailments were so paralyzing that he was often confined to a bed for weeks. Between crusades and crusade and service, he was bedridden for weeks. Spurgeon came to see those problems as a part of God's work in his life. It was his process. I don't know. Maybe he had trouble. He was very prideful. I don't know what it was. I don't know why he had to go through that. Okay, I don't know. Just hypothetical. But the truth is that his ailments let him get strength to help people, to preach. He reached broken people because he was broken himself. When you think with someone that says, you are a sinner, and you see that I have anointing, I'm perfect, you feel rejection. You think, no, that's not true. Nobody here comes in charge of fire. And you cannot empathize when you let people think that you're perfect, that you don't suffer. Spurgeon came to see that these problems as a part of God's work in his life. His sufferings enabled him to console and encourage the many hurting people in his ministry. And he noticed a pattern in his life. His periods of depression invariably preceded seasons of blessings from upon God's in his ministry. He knew that he suffered for one purpose. He knew how his depression attacks me whenever God prepares me for a great blessing. Charles Spurgeon, this psychological fragile man, published more than 3,500 sermons, wrote 135 books, and still considered the prince of preachers. God always has a purpose for every test. Life is not going to be easy. If we do not know Christ, we enter battle without weapons of armor. We fight with our own strength. And we fall on our faces. Why? Because God is the only one who can help us when trials come. But finally here, where Psalm 21, we find this miracle, the center of it. This is when we feel that it is time to take off our shoes because we begin to step on holy ground. David pours out his heart before God because of the atrocious family problems that plagued him. A tsunami that came and he didn't see coming. He wished he was one of those Moken and go to high ground. He cries out to God because of terrible pain he feels. For us, a season like this would be capable of making us angry with God and abandon the path. Look, my son is in drugs. Look, my girl is pregnant. Or they don't talk to me. He's in a bad life. But somehow, in the midst of wounds and suffering, David's prayer is full of worship and praise. My praise will always be yours. He says, let my mouth be filled with your praise, with your glory all day long. But I will always wait, and I will praise you more and more. The troubles get worse. My mouth will publish your righteousness and your deeds of salvation all day long, although I do not know their number. Likewise, I will praise you with psaltery instrument. I will sing your truth to you on the harp. O holy men of Israel, my lips will rejoice when I sing to you, my soul, which you redeemed. My tongue will also speak of your justice all day long, because they have been put to shame, because those who saw me wrong have been confused. This is what distinguishes to be true Christian. You have problems. How you react to them. This is how Christians react. In a broken family, next to the trouble of a life ruined by debt, coming out of the tragic loss of a loved one, a voice broken by tears rises towards heaven in worship, in unstoppable worship. In the obscene cruelties of a prison camp, in a totalitarian nation where God's people are imprisoned, in a life without health, in which death is the only certainty, somehow, against all odds, a song is heard in the darkness. That's what David did. He sang at the trial. Not before, nor after leaving it, but during. I was supposed to beg for favors, but he said, I just want to give you worship, even in this difficult season. I've come only to worship you. I've only come to worship you. Every time we face trial, God will give us a song for our hearts. I've only come to worship you. Sing it in your house also. I've only come to worship you. I have only come to worship you. I have not come to ask you for a favor. I have only come to worship you. Every time we face a trial, God will give us a song for our hearts. And the song that He gives us will burst into a beautiful melody in the middle of the darkest night. You will never forget these songs. God, look at my broken heart. Sometimes we don't even feel like worshiping. It's not like here on Sunday that you want to worship. But during the trial, you don't feel like worshiping. A hospital, at a cemetery, IC unit, you don't feel like worshiping. Worship is not you worshiping your God, but it will help you. So we're doing that tsunami of life. Don't think that there is no an army that could do something. Your worship is an army that will fight for you. It's not about how you sing, if you're a good singer or not. It's the heart. It's how your heart sings it. In most cases, we don't feel the desire to worship. Worship is strengthening the soul. Worship is the act of magnifying God, of enlarging our vision of Him. His size does not change, but our perception of Him does. The closer we get, the bigger it seems. We have big problems, big worries, and big questions For this very reason, we need a great notion of God. It is God Himself who gives us a song in the night. When it seems that there is nothing worth singing. Even those of us who do not sing very well. Psalm 30:11 says, "You turn my mourning into dancing. You took away my mourning clothes and dressed me for celebration. So I could sing to you and glorify you and not remain silent." I need to glorify. I will not stay quiet. I will sing. And Paul adds, encourage each other with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude to God in your hearts. Some of our most tender moments with the Lord have the mark of a song, even at a funeral of someone we love. Worship consists of forgetting what is wrong with our lives and remembering the good that is in God. It's like pressing the refresh key in our computer. Restores the joy of salvation. Our spirit recalibrates. It renews our mind. One of the purest forms of worship is to worship God when we have no desire or reason to do so, because this shows that our worship does not depend on circumstances. You are a worshiper. Mexicans, El Salvador, Colombia, Dominicans, I'm Argentinian. Good or bad government, champions of the world or not, but I mean, we were world champions. When I was 15 years old, but I was still a child who felt alone and was very scared. I was afraid of losing my hand. And with my hand hanging from a harness and full of tears, I remember that I began to sing. I came to worship God. I came to worship God. I was just a child. I was never away or alone from my house for the first time ever. And they left, so I was alone. I could talk to them because I'm in heaven. They're in heaven. I was afraid of losing my hand. And with my hand hanging from a harness and full of tears, I came to sing this way. I came to worship God. With my hand like this. I came to worship God. I came to worship His name. I came to worship God. Okay, come in here. Do it with me, please. I came to worship God. I came to worship His name. I came to worship God. Victor Frank, Jewish Holocaust survivor, wrote about his experiences in the Nazi concentration camp. The prisoners' clothes, pictures, and names were torn off, and they were given a number. However, there was something that they could not take away from us. Everything can be taken away from a man, except one thing, the last of human freedoms, which is to choose his attitude in the midst of circumstances. The most important decision we make every day is choose our attitude. I'm not going to promise you that your winter is over soon, but I will teach you that the worship will change the atmosphere. That worshiping God will change you. Worship is a mind-dominated matter. Worship changes the spiritual atmosphere. And I don't know when God will change my assignment. And I don't know for sure if He will.